YouTube, and our website. Welcome to the 2023 annual meeting of the Shasta Hanchett Park Neighborhood Association. I'm Edward Saum, the President and Director for Planning and Land Use. SHPNA was created more than 35 years ago by a handful of concerned neighbors and has since grown into a strong advocate for the St. Leo's, Garden Alameda, Cahill, and Shasta Hanchett Park neighborhoods, with an estimated 4,500 households within the association boundaries. We've got a long history of engagement with the city, local nonprofits, and other stakeholders, and we're proud of the institutional knowledge that can be found within our neighborhood. As I mentioned, we're fortunate enough to have a full agenda. Our Vice President, Claire Bayless, will be monitoring the Q&A, and Claire and I will together endeavor to get to as many of the questions as possible. Please feel free to follow up with us if you have any additional questions, as our hope is that today's meeting prompts further engagement with the Neighborhood Association, our elected officials, and the other organizations here today. Let's be honest though, you're not here today to listen to me talk, so I'm going to endeavor to use less than my allotted time in each instance. Let's get started. First guest speaker is Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors President Susan Ellenberg. Susan.
Good morning, thank you. And Michael Norris, my communications director, I think is going to run my slides. And Michael, are we ready? Okay.
There you go. I was going to say, you should be able to share. Perfect.
There we go. Perfect. Thank you. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with all of you in a new year. And for me in my new term and new role as the president of the Board of Supervisors. So by way of introduction of my remarks, I'm excited to share briefly with you some of the work in which my office engaged over the previous 12 months, share a little bit about where we're going, but just a tease, and then glad to answer questions at the end. During the past year, and certainly the 3 before it, I worked with staff and colleagues and partners to lay a solid foundation for the bigger systems changes that must be implemented if we're going to see real improvement in our areas of greatest social, economic, and well-being challenges: homelessness, mental illness, substance use disorders, criminal justice system reform, and the crippling economic impacts of the lack of affordable, accessible, high-quality childcare. But we'll get to that in a few moments. We just finished an election cycle in 2022, as well as the once in a decade redistricting process. We have welcomed Supervisor Sylvia Arenas, who took over from Mike Wasserman, representing District 1. Some of our district boundaries shifted slightly, and overall the population decreased from about 400,000 residents per supervisorial district to about 370,000. District 4, as all of you well know, includes numerous neighborhoods across West San Jose, the cities of Santa Clara and Campbell, and the unincorporated urban pocket of Burbank. So 2022 was a big year for the 4th District. So many community groups worked hard to give us opportunities to come together, and I am filled with gratitude for the partners, agencies, friends, and nonprofit organizations who made these opportunities possible. The more we get to talk and laugh and read together, the more likely we can do the hard work together, which happened a lot in 2022 in some big priority areas in the county. Last January, I, along with Supervisor Lee, led our county to declare mental health and substance use disorders a public health crisis. Since then, the board has approved more than 125 inpatient residential treatment and detox beds, with more in the pipeline toward a goal of 500 new beds by 2025. The 988 crisis line launched with mobile response teams. Expansion of treatment facilities and the workforce, of course, is critical to providing ongoing care and limiting the number of people who cycle through our jails. I also created 3 work groups to propose recommendations to the board for alternatives to incarceration that emphasize public safety. In February, the Board of Supervisors unanimously approved my children's roadmap to recovery. This approach to pandemic recovery focused in part on supporting youth who lost a caregiver to COVID-19. The Journal of the American Medical Association estimates that about 10.5 million children worldwide lost a primary or secondary caregiver to COVID. The roadmap to recovery also focused on investing in early childhood education, workforce development, and funding school-based wellness centers. In March, the board approved my referral to create a caregiver returnship program within county departments, affording caregivers who left the workforce to care for a child, parent, or other family member a way back into the workforce with the goal of moving past a gap in the resume and back to full-time employment. In May, the board supported my advocacy to invest in more detox beds. We are on track to provide approximately 700 more people per year with access to detox services. Based on another referral I submitted in partnership with Supervisor Lee, the county is investing $10 million in small business recovery. And those funds will go toward county fee waivers, direct grants, and a zero interest loan program that's being operated through Kiva. We can't talk about the issues facing the Bay Area or this county without talking about homelessness and the critical need for significantly more affordable housing. We've recently completed the 5th year of implementation for the Measure A affordable housing bond that voters approved in November of 2016. Since then, countywide, we've approved more than $643 million in multifamily housing development, consisting of over 4,300 new apartments and 689 units renovated across 47 developments. Over the past several years, the county has worked to expand the types and levels of support we provide to people who are experiencing mental health crises, serious mental illness, or substance use disorders, both within our own health and hospital system and in partnership with community-based providers. In the last year, we appropriated more than $600 million for behavioral health care, which includes supportive housing services, intensive wraparound services, school-based services, community clinics, and other essential measures. But we absolutely need to do more, including expansion of the workforce, building or contracting for additional facilities, and expanding access to services. Of course, we also have to take greater steps, bolder steps, to keep people from falling into homelessness in the first place, which, not to minimize, but it is a much more cost-effective way of working the problem. In August, I partnered with State Senator Dave Cortese to pilot a state-funded universal basic income program to supplement the finances of unhoused or unstably housed teenagers as they move past high school. The program, when funded with state dollars, will provide flexible income to youth for 3 months to help them transition to college, apprenticeships, or the workforce. Also last year, in partnership with Supervisor Chavez, I initiated a referral that aimed to get unhoused families with infants or young children into stable housing. Together with county stakeholders in the Office of Supportive Housing, we introduced the Heading Home campaign, which focuses on providing emergency housing vouchers to young families. Thus far, 478 families with children obtained housing in that first year, and we're working to identify more landlords who will accept the housing vouchers and welcome families home. Quick PSA, if any of you happen to have rental properties and are interested in this campaign, please reach out directly to me. I can share more detail regarding the support that landlords get to complete the forms, the financial coverage that you get so that there's no time that you're left without rental income while the voucher is kicking in, as well as some additional incentives for landlords. I've been asked a number of times about the differences between city and county governments and their areas of focus. For the most part, the difference boils down to the county being primarily focused on people in need and land conservation, and the city primarily focused on infrastructure, economic development, and municipal services. Those are simplistic categorizations, to be sure, and there's lots of nuance. The city takes care of people, we do some infrastructure. There are areas of overlap in parks and libraries. There are other areas such as housing that we are approaching from different angles, but that have brilliant synergy that have to work together to create a complete continuum of care. What I suspect people have been meaning by that question, especially of late, is that you really want to know how well the county of Santa Clara and the city of San Jose work with one another. And my short answer to that is that we work well together because we have to. As some of you may have seen on my public calendar or read in the San Jose Spotlight, I met with Mayor Matt Mahan earlier this month. Good morning, Mayor, I see you here. And that yielded some positive results. We share common goals around solving for the gaps that leave residents on the streets, in our jails, and without access to mental health or substance use disorder treatment resources. We share an interest in focusing on a number of strategic priorities to make sure that we are advancing the ball and showing results for our residents. There is no shortage of ways for us to work together on behalf of the residents of San Jose. As we continue into 2023, I look forward to building on past progress. My theme for the year is building together. And I mean that not only metaphorically in terms of the partnerships and collaborations that are essential to do big things, but quite literally, building out our infrastructure and essential workforces, particularly in the areas of mental health and its intersections with homelessness, substance use disorders, and contact with the criminal justice system, and accessible, high-quality childcare, two of my biggest priorities in 2023. And just to put another little fine point on that topic for a moment, childcare is not simply an individual parent's challenge. It is a community-wide concern, and funding it as such will serve the public good. Early investments in childhood are anti-poverty, pro-employment, and transform the economic, social, and communal well-being landscape. You can expect a lot more from me soon on this topic. I am determined to shift the narrative around childcare and build a deep understanding that local economies are suppressed. There's less consumer spending, lower professional productivity, and greater poverty, all leading to the later social challenges that I discussed above. Early investments pay off in every conceivable direction, and quality publicly funded childcare is one of those investments. Because we need to invest in multiple critical issues at once, we will also continue to prioritize the expeditious building of permanent supportive housing, as well as the interim solutions that are needed to build out that full continuum. I'll also maintain my focus on developing truly healing and restorative alternatives to incarceration whenever it is safely possible to do so. If you would like to hear more about how I plan to approach the city's biggest challenges in partnership with my colleagues, I invite you to join my State of the County address this coming Tuesday, January 31st at 5:15 in Board Chambers at 70 West Heading Street. If you're interested in coming and seeing the program live, please RSVP today. We have filled the chambers and we are working toward filling out the adjacent auditorium right now. Of course, aside from that, you are always welcome to be in touch with my office, with any of my team members. I am here for the work, and I am always interested in partnering with anyone who has a vision that will help more people thrive here in Santa Clara County. The end.
Thank you, Susan. We've got a minute or two. Does anybody have a quick question for the supervisor? I should say the board president. And SHPNA resident, I will add. Thank you.
There you go. In one of the most active neighborhoods, I must say, love it. Okay, looks like I covered everything. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day. And thanks for
Susan. All right, then, moving on next, we're honored to welcome Mayor Mahan, who quite literally had to hit the ground running given the storms that swept through the area very shortly after he took office. I do have to say one of my favorite tweets of the last few weeks was the one your wife posted where usually I'm the one saying careful Matt in the video as you were running down one of the hillsides. Instead it was one of your staffers saying be careful. And your wife's comment to that, I'm glad to know that somebody is telling him that when I'm not there to be able to tell him that.
That's right.
So
yeah.
With that, we'll go ahead and turn over the floor to the mayor.
Thanks, Ed. Hi, everybody. Matt Mahan here. Great to see you all. Thank you for the invitation. And I'm really glad Supervisor Ellenberg went first. That was a great slide deck. I'm still getting ramped up. I promise next year to bring a beautiful, shiny slide deck like Supervisor Ellenberg just presented to you. I really enjoyed hearing her presentation and really appreciate her delineating the respective roles of the city and county and emphasizing what I think is such an important point, which is on the really big, challenging issues we face, like homelessness and public safety, we absolutely have to work in lockstep and have joint strategies and collaborate. And I really enjoyed sitting down with Supervisor Ellenberg and feel like there is a lot of opportunity for the city and county to collaborate more effectively to address these issues. So really appreciated hearing her update. I'll be fairly quick. As you mentioned, Ed, I was welcomed into office by a series of atmospheric rivers, and I just wanted to highlight two things for you all that I think are valuable takeaways. One is the team at the city did a tremendous job And I think one of the big learnings from 2017 was the importance of collaborating with other agencies. Our Emergency Operations Center was in constant contact with Valley Water, with the county, with PG&E. We contacted the Red Cross early. We obviously avoided what could have been much worse. We did not see widespread flooding, thankfully. Our real concern was for our unhoused community living along our waterways, the hundreds, probably realistically 1,000 or so folks living along the creeks. And so we did an evacuation order. That was what Ed referenced, of us traipsing through the creeks, updating, letting people know that the waters were rising quickly and we needed them to move back from the waterways. We helped a couple of hundred people move into evacuation centers and a couple of our community centers. And something we did that I'm very proud of, and really came from the staff level, and we were talking about winding down these evacuation centers, is we said to ourselves, you know, we don't want to just send people right back into the creeks. And of course, as we all know, there's still far too many people living along our creeks, but we were able to rapidly pivot within a matter of just a couple of days to expand our emergency interim sites to add capacity for an additional 130 people who were willing, when leaving an evacuation center, to instead be diverted to an interim housing site with some on-site services, with the safety and stability of those EIH sites. And so I think that's a real, it's incremental. Obviously, we have a crisis on a scale of thousands, and this is 130 people, but really appreciate that staff pivoted quickly and really pragmatically to create that additional capacity almost literally overnight. We had the Conservation Corps out there building basic shelter for folks who were ready to take that first step. Also wanted to highlight, as we're ramping up here, a few things. I, as you all know, nominated Rosemary Kamei, Councilmember Kamei, to be vice mayor. The council just approved that. She represents District 1 in West San Jose. I also appointed the 4 returning council members to chair our city council committees, and have really tried to emphasize bringing the council together after a contentious election season and emphasize common ground. And where I think there's a lot of common ground, and you heard this with Supervisor Ellenberg's update, is the need to focus in on the basics. I think that the reality is the pandemic necessitated that we take on a lot of responsibilities that, at least at the city, we previously had very little prior experience with, if any. Things like food distribution and vaccinations at scale. And now is a moment, as we kind of move into this recovery phase, to get back to safety, cleanliness, code enforcement, speeding up permitting so we can build housing faster where it makes sense, really getting back to those core city services. And in that spirit, as we head toward my first budget message in the first week of March, so just 5 weeks away, our team, in collaboration with the city manager, has set up 5 transition committees, one on homelessness with an emphasis on faster, more cost-effective ways to reduce street homelessness or the unsheltered rate, one on public safety with an emphasis on street level and property crime, where we're seeing just really high rates of recurring crime in specific neighborhoods from repeat offenders, and really zeroing in on what is in reality a very small number of people committing most of these crimes. A lot of, catalytic converter thefts, package thefts, car thefts, etc. Third, blight and beautification. I think we all have noticed that the city doesn't look as clean and beautiful as it has in past years, and we want to put an emphasis there. And I think that's a great opportunity for community engagement. We've set up a neighborhoods outreach team in the mayor's office that will be out in our neighborhoods every day, helping to get neighborhood associations revitalized or started in the first place, and then helping them get to work on beautification projects to help supplement the city's own beautification services. Fourth, planning and permitting. If we want to have a vibrant city that has housing for those who need it, that supports our small businesses, we need to make sure that we're not actually a barrier to that investment. And our planning department right now has about a 25% vacancy rate. It's taking far too long to process permits. We have a huge backlog of inspections and code enforcement complaints. We really need that we really need to turn around that department, frankly. And then finally, downtown vibrancy. Downtown is everyone's downtown. We want it to be a destination for all of our residents. It needs to be not only safe and clean, but we need to execute big projects such as bringing BART to downtown and improving how we work with San Jose State to take advantage of the fact that we have an incredible university in the heart of our downtown. And so there's real opportunity for our entire city in making downtown a vibrant, safe destination that's growing, where we bring back small businesses. So those are the 5 transition committees. They're cross-functional. They include representatives from business, labor, city, county, various different stakeholders, and especially neighborhood leaders. And I really wanted to bring that voice of the neighborhoods to these committees. And so they will be framing up budget recommendations that I'll be incorporating into the March budget message in just 5 weeks. So let me just end on this. If you have recommendations in any of those categories, homelessness, safety, blight and beautification, planning and permitting, downtown vibrancy, which can expand to kind of the vibrancy of our neighborhoods and commercial districts, please reach out. I would love to hear from you. You can reach me and our team at mayor@sanjoseca.gov. I'll put that in the chat as soon as I wrap up here. I also would love to invite you all to my inaugural address. We're doing a little inauguration and swearing in next Wednesday in the evening. Doors open at 5:15. We'll be over at the Center for Performing Arts. We're expecting a couple of thousand people, actually. We'll have some time to socialize beforehand and then a reception afterward. And it should be a fun program. So I will put the RSVP link in the chat as well. And that's it. Next time I'll come with some beautiful slides like Supervisor Ellenberg.
Thank you. I think we've got time for a question or two. If the mayor has time, there's a couple questions that have been posed in the Q&A. Claire, do you want to go ahead and read the first one?
Yeah, sure. Hi, this is from Shannon Beauregard. Can the mayor please respond to the residents' concerns about the proliferation of short-term rentals and ADUs being used as short-term rentals and not for the intended purpose of increasing affordable housing? That was from Sharon. If you have something to say, that would be great on that.
Yeah, I think I appreciate the question, and I'd be very happy to follow up with you on what you're seeing in your neighborhood. We have seen an incredible expansion of ADUs, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I think it is I think it really can be part of the solution to our housing crisis and the lack of supply that we have. But of course, it can't be abused. We don't want to see our neighbors be running hotels out of their backyard. So I think there's a balance there that we need to strike, and that's really a city code and enforcement issue. So if there's, I just added the email to the chat. If whoever asked the question can maybe send me some specific details about what you're seeing in the neighborhood, we can follow up and get our housing and code enforcement folks involved and just make sure that we've got the right rules and that we're actually enforcing them.
Thank you. There's a similar question in the chat, which I believe Ed is responding to. So I'm going to move on to the third question. There's a couple more things. Is there budget to employ unhoused to help with the city beautification? Was a question from Lauren Smith.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Yes, we do have a couple of programs, and actually a priority for me. I'm going to speak to this in my inaugural address next week. It does just that. It employs unhoused residents to clean up the city, but then also layers in other services and training and opportunities to step into other career pathways. We've partnered with Goodwill through one of our programs. I think there's huge opportunity here to give people the stability of work, the dignity of work, and income. It's also it establishes a relationship between the city and our service providers and that individual to help get them other services they need. and we all benefit because the city's cleaner. And so it's a brilliant solution. It's something that I championed and helped expand last year. And I think given the success we're seeing, we need to double down. It's still at what I would consider to be sort of subscale. We've got at any given time, maybe 100 people citywide who are really engaged consistently and being paid to clean up the city. And I would like to see us have a multiple of 2 or 3x in the next budget cycle. And I heard that the chat wasn't necessarily working. And did you just repost those to everyone?
I did.
Yeah.
The way the webinar works, by default, a panelist is only chatting to the host and panelists unless you
I see.
check a few buttons, stand on one leg, and type backwards, apparently. So
Thank you. Well, hopefully now everyone has the email and the RSVP form for the inaugural.
I think there's one more question, Mayor, if that's okay, and then I'll stop quizzing you.
Yeah.
This is from Sandra Weber. Thank you, Mayor. Can you please address the plans for easing fees and time requirements for small businesses, especially F&B and the opportunity on the Alameda?
Thanks for the question, Sandra. This is something that the Transition Committee on Planning and Permitting is looking into. And I mentioned, I think the initial biggest impact we can have on this issue is significantly reducing the vacancy rate in our planning department so that we actually have proper staffing to review applications faster and just have faster turnaround times. I think we do need to look at the actual level of those fees for small businesses. There are some state laws that restrict, we can't preference certain groups for some of these fees. It has to just be kind of straight cost recovery. So we're sort of working through that. But I think, we all know the adage that at least, in business, time is money. And so the single biggest thing I think we can do is provide much faster, clearer, more delightful customer service. So that's something we're looking into, that especially around tenant improvements. One of the things we hear from small business owners time and again is that they're frankly scared to sign a lease because they don't know if they're going to be able to get the permission and permits from the city and inspections from the city to get through the improvements they need to make to the space and then move in and begin operating in time. And they're on the hook for paying that lease. And so we have to give small business owners that confidence. But if you have other specific ideas around how to support small businesses on the Alameda, whether it's around permitting and inspections and fees or other ideas, please email me at mayor@sanjoseca.gov. I want to make sure we fold that into this transition committee's work and that we have it reflected in the budget message this year.
Thank you very much.
And thank you again for making the time this morning, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your meeting and your weekend. Take care.
All right, I am going to endeavor to be incredibly brief, which is against type, but we're going to make this happen. I'll just very briefly review SHPNA's activities during 2022. 20 years ago, the physical SHPNA newsletter was hand-delivered to members each month. Obviously, today, Facebook, Instagram, and our Groups IO mailing lists are the primary means of communication with our membership. One doesn't need to be a paid member of SHPNA to sign up for our Groups IO, which is by far our most active outlet. Our website, completely reworked, with much thanks to Clara, and updated last year, remains a valuable resource as well. In May, SHPNA volunteers partnered with Councilmember Davis's office to host a dumpster day for the neighborhood. One of my favorite parts of that day was the number of residents that volunteered to help. In previous years, it had been primarily SHPNA board members who staffed and monitored the dumpsters. Obviously, we were all happy to see the return of the Rose, White, and Blue Parade and Festival. As in previous years, SHPNA provided the bike decorations. Honestly, I'm not sure who gets the most excited about the bike decorations, the children, San Jose Bike Party, or the SHPNA board members, including myself, who staff tables each year. This year, you may have also seen us in the parking lot at Hanchett and the Alameda alongside the Luchadors. SHPNA provided free snow cones to attendees. I can tell that this picture was taken during the parade itself as part of our soft opening, and Claire will understand because as soon as the parade was over, the line for the snow cones was substantively longer than this. By the end of the festival, we had given out over 700 snow cones and 400 containers of bubbles. This Halloween saw the return of Trick or Treat on the Alameda. You may have seen Hagrid and Commander Troy handing out glow necklaces at the SHPNA table outside the town's East Cinemas. Although I'll continue to give our board secretary, Liana Bakakos, good-natured grief for wearing command red instead of science and medical blue. Every year, SHPNA partners with Westminster Presbyterian Church for the annual community tree lighting. I was honored to speak at the beginning of the performances and to thank Pastor Bryan and the church for being such a central part of the neighborhood. SHPNA board members provided the snacks and refreshments for the performers, parents, and other attendees after Santa helped light the tree. The Beautify SJ grant program is a wonderful tool by which dedicated volunteers can partner with neighborhood organizations to improve the public places around them. For the last few grant cycles, SHPNA resident and former board member Rick Bernard has been tirelessly reviving Theodore Lenzen Park, using funding secured by SHPNA under the Beautify SJ program. Every year or grant cycle, SHPNA has worked with Rick to compile the proper plans, forms, and permissions from the city. Beautify SJ doesn't simply throw money at a problem or pay somebody to address a concern. All the work must be done by volunteers. The grant goes towards the cost of the materials used in the work. Beautify SJ funds have also in the past been used for things like the refreshments given out in Westminster Presbyterian annual tree lighting and the bike decorations at the Rose, White, and Blue Parade. Can you think of a public serving project that you'd like to see done in the area? If you've got the time to volunteer your labor, then partnering with SHPNA through the Beautify SJ program might be a good way to give back to the neighborhood. We hope to have a detailed presentation from the city about Beautify SJ at an upcoming monthly board of directors meeting this spring. Watch our email list and social media posts for additional details. And then lastly, I'll wrap up this review with a bit of a look forward and a request as well. I truly love this quote about volunteerism. I mean, it's rarely, if ever, a case of idle hands. More often than not, it's a case of wanting to give back. On the left is the recent meetings and events portion of our December President's Update. It might be a little too small to see on your screen, but the essence, 27 meetings and events attended or staffed by SHPNA board members in less than 100 days. Over the last few years, volunteer organizations have seen their roles dwindle. PAC SJ, the ABA, SHPNA, and many of the city's boards and commissions have struggled to even come close to pre-pandemic engagement levels. Like those other organizations, SHPNA thrives on volunteers, and the best volunteers are often those that start out with a question at an annual meeting or a board of directors meeting, and then engage further from there. Is there a SHPNA-sponsored event that you enjoy? Consider volunteering. As a result of the drop in volunteerism over the last couple of years, organizations like SHPNA have been forced to curtail their volunteer-heavy activities. With new volunteers come new opportunities for events within the neighborhood. On the right, to address the elephant in the room, if you will, the Stroll the Alameda logo. Last year, SHPNA lacked the volunteers to put on an event worthy of previous strolls. On the day of the event, there are 30 or more single-day volunteers deployed. In addition to that, the Stroll the Alameda Committee puts in upwards of 1,000 man-hours over the course of 6 months. Stroll is by far our most popular event. It is also the event that requires the most effort. For that effort to land on fewer and fewer shoulders each year eventually became untenable. If you've enjoyed Stroll the Alameda in previous years or are looking for a longer-term way to engage with the neighborhood association and local businesses, please consider volunteering for the Stroll the Alameda Committee. In partnership with the Alameda Business Association, it's our hope to revive the stroll for 2023. That being said, it will take more volunteers than the entirety of the SHPNA and ABA boards combined to do so, and preparations will need to be underway within the next 60 days. Towards that end, we'll be putting out a call for, a call for volunteers. Sorry, let me get back to it. I apologize about that. We're putting out a call for volunteers in the next several days so that the go, no-go decision on Stroll the Alameda 2023 can be made by the Board of Directors meeting on March 22nd. Obviously, everybody's not here to hear me speak. So with that, we'll turn things over to Santa Clara County Supervisor Cindy Chavez. Supervisor Chavez. You're muted.
Ed, thank you. Thanks for catching that. And also thank you for I think that quote is really, really apt right now. And my own experience has been that the busy people are the ones we want. And so we're going to have to keep trying to get those busy people re-engaged. So thank you for your leadership and for SHPNA being such an incredibly important organization to our community. So what I thought, given Supervisor Ellenberg's presentation, is I thought I would focus on 3 subsets of county work that might be of importance to the community. First, I want to say how absolutely excited I am that Susan is our incoming chair of the board. And I hope to see as many of you as are available at her State of the County. It's going to be, as always, I'm sure it's going to be a list of things she is moving the county to do. So I'm very excited about that. But let me talk just at a high level about a few opportunities that I want to make sure the community is aware of. One is that, as many of you know, and some of you may be experiencing, we have a part of our community really being impacted by job loss. And as part of that, whether that's somebody who works for Google or Meta or in any of our organizations, we want to make sure that people in our community have access to health insurance. And so what I'm going to send in the chat is the email address, the website, and also a phone number for people who are interested in getting covered through Covered California. We have open enrollment just for a few more days until January 31st. But if you've lost a job, someone is new to the community, someone has a child that has just been born or adopted, or you've turned 26 and you've got married, all of these things may allow you an opportunity to have access to health insurance. We have a great program that will make it easy for you to sign up. And there are many, many plans. And oddly enough, 90% of them are subsidized in one way or another. So we just want to make sure everybody in our community has access to health insurance. And as a reminder, we have some of the best hospitals and healthcare institutions literally in the country here in our community. We want to make sure you have access to them. If you have any questions, please call the phone number. There are folks right on that are ready to respond, and they have multiple languages. So if you want to send this out to family and friends, I hope you will do that. And we have many, many different types of insurance programs, and they're all really customized because, as each of you know, your family's needs are very different. And so please take a look at that if you can. The other area that I wanted to touch on was something that Supervisor Ellenberg touched on as well, and that is that in the fall of this year, we launched our 988 number and program, and that is an opportunity for anybody in our community who is under mental health distress, or if you as a parent or a family member have a family member who's in need of care. 988 is really our new one-stop shop for people to get services. The backbone of 988 is our suicide prevention hotline. What that means is that we have people who are skilled and who've been doing this work for many, many years, prepared to respond to calls for service. But if you have a young person who's in distress, if you have a community member who you think needs to talk to, for example, a peer, there's a very short screening that goes on, and then there will be a response. Now, 988 is still relatively new, and I think both Supervisor Ellenberg and I would agree that we're doing a lot to grow the services that are attached to that number. And so frankly, the more people use it, the more it will help us know where do we need to grow and what services do we need to grow in. The other thing, for those of you who are concerned about, police response, there's also a program called Trust that is a program where people with lived experiences can respond to those who are suffering and who are in need without a police response. If a police response is needed and you dial 988, they can connect to 911. 911 can also connect to 988. So please feel free to use those numbers. I think they are incredibly important for our community to understand the opportunities there. The last area I wanted to touch on is something that I have been working on with our district attorney, Jeff Rosen. We established a fentanyl working group, and fentanyl, as you know, has started to take the lives of many, many people in our community, and not just from overdose, but from fentanyl poisoning. And what that means is that we have people of all ages, but primarily young, who are taking medication or pills that are counterfeit pills that they don't know are laced with fentanyl, and it can cause instant death. So the fentanyl working group has been really working with the County Office of Education and all of our schools to make sure that the antidote to that, which is naloxone through a Narcan, is available at schools, in our community, and our colleges. And we're really working hard to expand that. We have a leader in our working group is actually from your neighborhood, Dr. Rachel Sussman. And the working group has parents on it who've lost children, people with lived experiences who've had addictions, and young people on it, law enforcement, and people in our community. Now, one of the reasons that I'm raising this is that I think it's really important that we do our very best to educate, in particular, parents to the fact that children are getting access to counterfeit pills, and some of them through TikTok and online services. If you are interested, I also put my email in the chat in learning more about the work that we're doing to address fentanyl. This goes back to your point about volunteers, but we would also be happy to let you know when we're doing online presentations and education for both parents and young people. So I do want to just say, wrap up. I know you're listening to a lot of folks today, how really delighted I am to have been invited, and look forward to getting any concerns or questions that you have, especially in the areas that I've raised. And if we can be of any service to you, please do let us know.
Thank you. We do have a couple of questions in the chat there. Did you want to read those off?
Yeah, sure. A comment from Christina. I've never heard of 988. Good to know it exists. That's good. Alex saw Supervisor Chavez. Have you been surprised by the results so far of the county's efforts from the 2016 Measure A? What were the biggest successes? Are there any setbacks? Have there been any setbacks?
Yeah, Alex, thank you for the question. I think that, I thought Supervisor Ellenberg did a really good job of letting folks know where we've had success. The biggest challenge we have as it relates to housing and getting housing built is, well, we have two. One is that we have a gap in funding. And so what happens is that most of these developments go to the state for state funding. And what's challenging about that is that it can take up to a year to get one component of the funding, which are called tax credits. Over that year, we have more people becoming homeless. The cost goes up dramatically. And so what we're trying to look at locally is, how do we fill that gap so that we're able to build much more quickly and keep our projects moving? I think what I've been a little surprised at is that even during COVID, the pace we've been able to keep up, most of the money that we all supported, most of us voted to support, has actually been used because we have so many projects in the pipeline. We're going to need more resources. And frankly, this is where we need the state to play a leadership role in helping us at a local level. Now, we in our county, and I think Supervisor Ellenberg made a great point, which is that we look to the cities to build infrastructure and the counties to provide services. In this instance, this was a county-wide collaboration to get resources to build that housing. But what we are also going to need is cities across the county to build housing of all affordability rates as quickly as it can, just to alleviate the housing pressure overall. So there are lots of moving parts to that.
Thank you. We have one more question from Christine. We have several unhoused neighbors who have a mental health diagnosis. When we see them having a mental health crisis, who can we contact?
So I'm going to recommend that you dial 988 unless it looks like a public safety issue, and then you want to dial 911. Now, the city, in partnership with the County of Santa Clara, has a number of programs, but one of them that you'll see most often, and that I've had a chance to see up close, is the MCAT teams. And those are teams where officers go out with clinicians to try to stabilize individuals and then get them the supports they need. I do just want to say that I think it's really, really, really important that we acknowledge that we need to build more housing, both permanent and interim housing, in order to make sure that somebody who's having that mental health crisis has a placement that actually allows them to get the services that they need. But in the interim, dial 988. But if you think it's a risk of harm, then you want to dial 911. it's really important to let them know that you think what you're observing is a mental health crisis, because that's what dispatches the MCAT team instead of just officers and a firefighters.
Thank you very much. I think that's it for questions. And Rachel has.
Right. One other item, Rita, not a question,
Yeah.
just an offer. First, Rachel, who is a SHPNA resident and actually is in attendance today, wanted to thank Supervisor Chavez for the shout out. And she has offered to give a brief presentation on fentanyl pills geared towards parents and other people around young people and how to use naloxone for SHPNA. So we may very well take her up on that exact offer. So obviously, thank you for the shout out, and thank you, Rachel, for the very generous offer. And thank you, Supervisor Chavez, for taking the time this morning as well. And thank you to the staffs of the mayor and the supervisor and the board president. Each of them was very accommodating. There was some lots of last minute correspondence, but we managed to make it work. And I'm very thankful for that.
Thank you. And by the way, take Rachel up on it. She's a great teacher.
All right, moving on, we have a brief video from Congresswoman Lofgren that I will play.
You might have to share audio.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. Oh dear. Were people not hearing the video, unfortunately?
No.
I believe when you go to share the video, there's an option to share audio as well. So you might have to go to reshare.
To the west up until
Yeah, we hear it now, Ed.
has been allocated to a Representative Eshu's district. This was done by an independent redistricting commission, and Anna Eshu is a terrific representative. I know that she will represent you well, but I will say it's disappointing to me because I've made so many good friends and had such a wonderful time working with so many of you. I did want to at least acknowledge your meeting today. I'm sorry I can't be there. I'm in Washington, but I wanted to give greetings and just a few little updates on some of the things that we will be overseeing in this Congress. As most of you are aware, we had a lot of very big achievements in the last Congress, along with President Biden. We passed a infrastructure bill that is providing substantial resources to the state of California for a lot of important things. For example, at least $25 billion in highway aid to the state of California, $4 billion for bridge replacement and repair, lots of money for public transit, for airport improvements, money to help bring BART into San Jose, and more. It's one of the biggest environmental bills passed in the history of the United States, advancing climate change measures, including efforts to allow for increased electric vehicles and a move overall away from fossil fuels to non-polluting sources of energy. Obviously, we've done other things, the Inflation Reduction Act and the COVID relief bills that kept many small businesses afloat. But I wanted to talk also about something that I've spent a lot of time in the last 2 years on, and that's the January 6th committee to investigate, the riot on January 6th. What we found, and many of you have been in touch with me about our meetings and our hearings, was that this was not a random event that got out of hand. In fact, it was a planned event that really, this plot revolved around the ex-president and his long-term intent to remain in power regardless of the votes cast by the American people. With our report, our job was done. We referred several matters to the Justice Department for further investigation. But I'll just say this, in the end, all of the things that we do and care about won't really matter to us if we lose our democracy. And so there's really nothing more important than standing up for our Constitution, protecting the right of every voter to vote, whether we agree with them or not. That's what makes our country a democracy, allowing people to control their own fate through their votes. And I was proud to play a part in standing up for that. With that, let me just say, again, my many thanks to all of you for allowing me to represent you these many years. For those of you who live east of the Alameda, I will be happy to provide whatever constituent services you may need in the future. Just call my district office. And for those of you who are moving over to Anna Eshu's district, I wish you the very best. And I know that Anna will have the same feeling of gratitude and pride that I have in being your representative in Congress. Thanks very much. Hello, I'm Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren.
I apologize and thank you for your indulgence on the technical issues there. With that, I'll go ahead and introduce, we have the district rep from Congressman Khanna's office, who want to take a few minutes to introduce himself as well. So, Christopher.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Christopher Acosta. I am a congressional aide from Congressman Ro Khanna's office. We just wanted to, welcome the neighborhood to the 17th district, and or more or less, thank you for welcoming us into your district. We're very, very excited to serve you all. Let me just give a quick rundown on, some of the services our district office offers to our constituents. One of them being casework. So if you ever need help with a federal agency, getting in contact, whether it be immigration or other federal services, you may reach out to our office and we can facilitate help with those procedures. If you are a part of a nonprofit or you're working for a certain government agency and you are working on a big project and you might need some federal funding for it, feel free to reach out to our office. We have opportunities for, those outlets. During the last Congress, Congressman Khanna secured around $30 million for local projects in our district. Some that may be relevant to Santa Clara would be the Anna Drive Neighborhood Flood Protection Project and some VTA and Operation Control Center updates and stuff. So it's been a very productive front on that part, and we really welcome you to seek those services as well. And part of my role as a congressional aide, I serve as a field rep, but the ambiguity of the title also means that I also serve as the district scheduler for the congressman. So if you ever want to shoot him an invite to a roundtable or an event like this, feel free to reach out. On that note, I would like to apologize that he's not here today. As you know, it's been a very eventful few weeks in California, and just in the nation as a whole. And so he had a couple fires to deal with in DC, but he will be here on the 4th for a special event actually. And so in the wake of 2 mass shootings, he will be having a mental health town hall in Milpitas on the 4th. And please keep an eye out on your email inboxes. Everyone should receive a email on that if you are subscribed to our newsletter. If you're not subscribed to our newsletter, I will provide a link in the chat so everyone can get subscribed. You'll get our latest newsletters and invitations to town halls, and just stay updated to what the congressman is working on the Hill. What else do I have to share? Oh, okay. We have not, done any promotion on this quite yet, but since I'm here and I am the scheduler and I know the schedule like the back of my hand, I can tip you guys off on our next town hall, which will be February 17th. It will be in Berryessa, and I really, really hope, we have some members of this association stop by and, check out what a town hall hosted by Congressman Khanna is all about. So, with that being said, I don't really have much else to share with you. I can provide maybe a couple big things that the congressman is working on right now. Right now we're going to reintroduce the Stop Wall Street Landlord Act, which will make it more difficult for rental companies to buy and sell houses, and making it more accessible for common American to buy and own their own homes. Another big one would be the Peace Act, which creates new practices within federal policing, just to have it's a excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm kind of blanking out. It's a policing bill that trains police and on I'm sorry and a Supreme Court term limits bill. And so those are big things that we're going to be fronting in this upcoming Congress, and I really, really hope to stay connected and provide more updates as we receive them.
Thank you, Christopher, and thank you for your patience with my little glitches there right beforehand. With that, we'll go ahead and move on. We'll take care of a little business here. Every year, as part of the annual meeting, elections are something that need to be taken care of. First, here we see the 2022 Board of Directors, all of whom are present here today. I'll just call out each person's name, and they can just say hello. I'm Edward Saum, current president. Claire Bayless, vice president.
Hi, everyone.
Christopher Russell, treasurer.
Hello.
Liana Bakako, secretary. Liana's been having some computer issues today, so that might be the source of that. Oh, there she is.
Thank you. Yes, good morning. Sorry about that. My video card is out now, and now I'm having a little audio problems too.
No worries. And Carol Austin, director. Carol, say hello. Oh, you're muted.
There we are. Hi.
There we are. Thanks, Carol. All right, then moving on. The board of directors meetings are obviously the fourth Wednesday of every month via Zoom at present. That's something that we revisit every few months. The primary role of the directors is to participate in planning and execution of events. And ideally, the desire to make a difference on a particular issue where you have great passion or expertise. We've had board members join that were interested in planning and land use and took on a larger role. We're interested in schools and took on a larger role. So it's always an instance of we can bring a specific passion within the neighborhood to the board, and then it can potentially grow to something larger. And I wanted to mention before the elections, my volunteerism spiel, if you will. So moving on, the proposed 2023 Board of Directors, the current directors have all offered to remain in their current position. So the proposed slate are the same positions. At the same time, one thing that we always want to encourage is nominations for additional directors from the floor. To understand that directors must be paid association members in good standing for at least 1 year prior to being elected. There is also the opportunity, if you're not sure at this time if you'd want to serve as a director, that during the course of the year, the board can appoint additional directors from those that expressed interest. So if you're curious and would want to attend some of our board of directors meetings or discuss it further with one or more of the directors, obviously, please feel free to do so. And we'd love to have your additional input. So at this time, what I have to ask then, and you can we'll need you to do so via the raise hand, the members present, the raise hand function on attendees for a vote. All those in favor for the current proposed 2023 Board of Directors to be elected as proposed. And as people are raising their hands, Christina has a question that I'll ask. Can there be more neighborhood involvement in the review of construction projects for historical review? A few remodels have happened in the last few years that are not in keeping with historic designation. As people are raising their hands, I will say that someone who was on the Historic Landmarks Commission for 8 years and was the chair for 6, I very much dovetail with your concern, Christine, and that's something that we try to keep an eye on, but that's something that I'll contact you offline and we can further that discussion because I'm in 100% agreement. All right, then we'll go ahead and formally say, and actually, Tina, I believe actually you are technically still a member, but thank you for the message. The lower hands then and say all those opposed. See, now if there's a flurry of hands, then I'll try not to take it personally, I promise. All right, thank you, everybody. Well, obviously, the board will endeavor to be worthy of your faith and trust, and will endeavor to add additional directors too, because I believe that additional work of kind of broadening our base and broadening our interest is what makes the neighborhood association thrive. With that, we will go ahead and move on to our next item, which is a brief video from State Senator Cortese. And hopefully the video and other issues have been resolved.
Hi, I'm State Senator Dave Cortese, and greetings to the Shasta Hanchett Neighborhood Association. First of all, I very much appreciate the invitation to be with you today. I wish I was there in person, but as you know, and as you can see, I'm here in Sacramento, in session as usual. I wanted to give you a quick update on what's been going on real time here now. We're of course looking back a little bit at the 12 bills that we had signed into law here as a Senate District 15 team. I'm very proud to be the author of those bills. But as we look forward, as we approach the February 17th bill deadline here, there's some big things that we have on the front burner. One of those is our fentanyl legislation, which will, among other things, require all the schools in Senate District 15 and up and down the state to create better access to Narcan and to, more importantly, to embed information in your school safety plans in your schools to make sure that the word is getting out to parents and kids that no pill is safe right now in this day and age. We're also dealing with what appears to be a budget deficit after 2 record years of surplus, thanks to you, the taxpayers. We're going to deal with that very prudently and very cautiously because we understand that things change, and we're very, very hopeful as a Senate that we will be able to protect every single investment we've made over the last 2 years, and that's our commitment right now. We're working on a lot of other things here in our bill package, which will amount to somewhere a little over 20 bills today. And we will keep you apprised as to what those are. And we're also very interested in hearing from you anything that you think we need to do, especially addressing severe issues back at home, like homelessness. Thank you very much again for allowing me a few minutes of time to greet all of you. I really look forward to seeing you in person, and keep up the good work. You're a great neighborhood association.
Right, just making sure the Q&A wasn't something that needed to be addressed there. Obviously, there is a member of I see a member of the state senator staff as one of the participants. Obviously, thank you to Zachary for attending today as well. With that, we will go ahead and move on to.
Hi, I'm State.
We have Diana Alanis from the City of San Jose Councilmember Dev Davis's office to give us some updates on some of the things that have been going on within District 6. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Diana.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for inviting our office to this meeting. Councilmember Davis could not be here due to a previous engagement. However, she did ask that I share the following updates and invite you to our State of the District. So the State of the District will be an online event where Councilmember Davis will share her goals for 2023, overview what she accomplished in 2022, and invite a few special guests from different city departments. If you are interested in attending, please email our office at district6@sanjoseca.gov or sign up for our newsletter. Obviously, I will leave that in the chat for Ed to share with the whole group. We will also host our monthly office hours February 8th at 5:30 p.m. Those usually take place over Zoom, and you have an opportunity to talk to Councilmember Davis about whatever city subject you would like to discuss. Now, for updates. So Councilmember Davis bought a property on the corner of Tillman Avenue and Park. It used to be the Pizza Hut. If you live in the neighborhood, you are familiar with this site, and it is planned for a future park that has not yet been funded for development. The Parks Department maintains the property once a month, and we seek opportunities to expand the planned park through real estate. Now, for the Beautiful Way Park on the corner of Hanchett Avenue, this is also a park that Councilmember Davis and the Shasta Hanchett Park Neighborhood Association have been working on. The last round of community meetings to name the park took place last fall, and the name that was chosen was the Beautiful Way Park. The name of the park will come to council this March, and we will reach out to Shasta Hanchett Park neighbors so you can all have an opportunity to voice your support. Now, moving on to the Arena Hotel. Just to give everyone a general overview, the city received a grant from the state's Project Home Key program late last year. This grant will be used to buy the Arena Hotel and turn it into interim housing for unhoused folks in the Alameda. The Arena Hotel offers 89 units of housing, and residents will have on-site support services offered by Home First. There has been a delay in the acquisition process, and the city now hopes to complete the acquisition of the Arena Hotel in February 2023. Prior to the occupancy, the property will need to go through a 5-month renovation to get the building ready. The renovation will begin shortly after the acquisition is complete, and again, that's hopefully in February. The long-term plan is to redevelop the site and build affordable housing. However, this wouldn't happen for at least 5 years, and the Arena Hotel will be operated as interim housing in the meantime. So the next CAC meeting will take place on site at the Arena Hotel, and this will take place after the city's acquisition is complete. So we have to wait until February and before construction renovation begins. All of the city's partners will be present during the next CAC meeting, including the site developer, urban housing communities, the on-site service provider, Home First, and the city's housing department. So if you want more information on any of those subjects, again, you can email our office. And also I encourage all of you to sign up for our newsletter. New and exciting things are always happening at council, and we want to make sure that you stay informed and up to date. Those are all my updates. And again, thank you for inviting us.
Thanks, Diana. Any questions for the council member, staff member? And I'm always thankful when Diana is here because it eliminates some things from my planning and land use report by having her address that. So together we cover more ground separately than I would have time to do so individually.
Same goes for you, Ed. Thank you.
And I will say one tidbit, which actually is in my slides later, but both the ABA and SHPNA boards are represented on the council members Citizens Advisory Committee for the Arena Hotel. So there will be representation from both organizations at that on-site meeting. All right, with that, let's go ahead and not seeing any other additional. Lori, did you have your hand up for a question or as a artifact from the election?
I'm sorry, Ed, that was an artifact.
Well, I mean, given your wonderful park advocacy, the fact that I had mentioned 2 parks, I did not want to assume.
That was my
Laura,
cheering. Yes, my hands cheering and clapping. Thank you very much.
Laura is one of the 2 people that we have to thank the most for all of the advocacy that got us what has become the Beautiful Way Park. So, all right, then moving on. We have a presentation series of slides. We have Doug Moody from VTA BART Silicon Valley, which obviously is a substantial change that will be coming to the area. And Doug wanted to give us some additional updates. I've got your slides teed up, Doug, so feel free, obviously, to just direct me as needed.
Great.
And I'll turn the floor over to you.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. Good morning. Thanks for having us. I'm Doug Moody with VTA's BART project. So the big news is, Ed alluded to it, it's coming, and it's true, the project is real, right? So we expect construction to start this year. You should see some utility relocation, some site preparation, some fences going up, with a major construction starting the following year, which is like tunneling and station excavation. And that's the big news. And today I just have some overview information in the slides to share with you about the project. If I can get the next slide, please. So this is the second phase of VTA's BART Silicon Valley project. The project overall will complete the ring of fast and frequent transit around the Bay. Right, it will allow, once we build phase 2, it will allow people to take a single seat ride between all 3 major downtown districts in the Bay Area, right? San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, all on one ride in BART. So phase 1 opened in 2020. That's the Milpitas and Berryessa station where you can ride from today, where I rode to Oakland from on Friday. The one that's starting construction this year, the phase 2 extension, which I have some more detail on the next slide. So next slide, please. The phase 2 extension includes 4 stations shown here. So there's the 28th Street Little Portugal station, downtown San Jose, the Diridon station, and the Santa Clara station. Those first 3 will be underground stations, so a subway running right down Santa Clara Street. And then it will pass under the tracks where the Alameda goes under the Caltrain, and then hook around under the neighborhood, around the Whole Foods, and then up Stockton, up to the Santa Clara station, which is right across the tracks from the existing Caltrain station. So the Diridon station will be the closest station to Shasta, Hanchett. I'm a St. Leo's resident, by the way. So hello, howdy neighbors. I love walking through your neighborhood on the weekends. Next slide, please. And just these are some of the benefits of the project. A summary, I shared about the single seat ride, the ring of fast and frequent high quality passenger rail around the Bay, which will connect people throughout the Bay Area to jobs and other destinations in the county. We expect it to eliminate almost 4 million auto trips every year, which helps strongly support climate goals. Annual carbon reductions equivalent to the size of the forest in Oakland. We expect it to help activate station sites in ways that foster walkability, vibrancy, activity, and help cultivate a sense of community. And overall, we also expect it to grow the economy. Next slide, please. And so this is being delivered. VTA is delivering the infrastructure, and the project overall is a partnership between VTA and BART. And that's the key distinction. VTA is delivering the infrastructure. BART will operate and maintain the train service and the stations. Next slide, please. So just so this information's out there, there was some news about this. Right, we all know single bore is the selected option. The big thing that happened recently as part of the proposed innovations for the contractor for the tunnel, who was a joint venture between Kiewit, Shea, and Trailer. So the previous concept, the tracks were side by side at the 28th Street Little Portugal station and side by side at the Santa Clara station, but there was some weaving as those transitioned to the downtown and Diridon stations, which resulted in the previous stack configuration shown on the left. Now within the single bore, the preferred concept moving forward is the tracks will be side by side the whole length of the phase 2 alignment. Next slide, please. And then funding update. So VTA has been approved by the FTA and to get into a New Starts program, which could, it's a larger match from the federal government, so less local money being spent. We've received a letter of no prejudice, which means exactly what it says after this. It allows us to receive, continue to receive, we can continue to spend money on the project and advance the project without entering into the full funding grant agreement with the FTA, which is what we're working on right now. So we'll have all the funds secure that we need to fully advance the project. Next slide, please. And so we've done some work with the community to design the stations. There have been a large public engagement effort focused on the station aesthetics and art at the stations that results in some stations that we expect to be, pretty nice stations to look at. This is a rendering of the inside of the Diridon station, which is the closest station to the Shasta Hanchett neighborhood. So there's some teal there to help the station integrate with the surroundings, the color of the sharks. And that light colored wood to complement that color. Next slide, please. So that's basically the overview information I have to share. We'll open up for questions here in a second. Please follow us. You can subscribe to updates on our website. You can email us at the email address shown there. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. So that's what I have to share for today. So thanks, Ed, and to the Shasta Hanchett Park and Neighborhood Association.
Thanks, Doug. As a planning geek myself, I'll go ahead and I'll insert a quick question. About a year ago, the renderings, et cetera, for the station, which will be directly across from SAP Center, showed around one-story station. And at the time, what Google had indicated was intended for that property was high-rise housing. Has that kind of contradiction been addressed?
I encourage you to tune in to the VTA board meeting on February 2nd for an update about that.
And then also I included some verbiage in a later slide, so I wanted to ask, so I'm not saying something incorrect in about 15 minutes. So I appreciate that. We have another question. I'll go ahead and read it, Clara. With the recent entrapment of riders in the Trans Bay Tube, are there any additional safety considerations that need to be considered for the planned underground stations?
I know that safety is considered. I know that emergency egress from the stations is something that's evaluated. I don't have a lot of detail on that. I'm more in the external affairs team side, less on the technical design side. I know that exists. I don't know the details. I can take that as a question. I can get back to you, Lauren. Lauren, do you have like an email address or a phone number you could drop in the chat? Or Ed, maybe I can connect with you and we can connect with Lauren.
I'll connect you with Lauren. Lauren at one point was actually a board member with an emphasis on public safety. So cool. We're quite familiar with Lauren's advocacy. And Tina had a question. Will there be semi-related question? Will there be dedicated public safety personnel? I advocate the accessibility, but with accessibility to well-intentioned individuals comes accessibility to opportunists with less than positive intentions. So I guess I have the security plan for the stations.
And I know there's been some conversation about whether it should be the BART police or the safety personnel that VTA employs. I don't know the answer to that one as well. I'll need to get back to you on that one as well. I'll lump that into my response.
Okay. Are there any other questions for Doug? Don't see any. So with that, obviously, thank you, Doug. And Doug was another one that we had lots of correspondence at the last minute, but we managed to make it work. And I very much appreciate his flexibility and his update, because like Diana, then I was able to eliminate some slides from my planning and land use, so people get to hear me talk less and get to hear more informed people talk a little more.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ed. And that's the truth. And thank you for the partnership.
All right, moving on. Speaking of having to unfortunately listen to me talk, next is our 2022 Planning and Land Use Year in Review. I'll start off with a bit of a disclaimer. The Planning and Land Use Year in Review and the monthly Planning and Land Use reports are not comprehensive analyses. They're an overview of current planning and construction processes, focusing on projects that are either new or substantively updated. SHPNA's planning and land use goals really boil down to three basic categories. Information, we provide updates to the association through monthly board meetings, social media, and the planning and land use reports. Collaboration, we work with developers as early in the process as possible when comments or questions are far more likely to result in substantive improvements. And advocacy, once the project enters the formal approvals process with the city, we use the association's institutional knowledge, a good portion of which I see represented in some of the attendees here today, to verify that the city's own guidelines are followed and that legitimate concerns of the residents aren't dismissed because, to be honest, they might lack the political and financial pull of a developer. I'll start off by cycling through a few of the projects that were recently completed or are currently under construction. The SHPNA logos on this map indicate a couple of them that I'll highlight briefly. A very much slow burn project has been 253 Race Street, which includes the old Race Street Fish Market. Remediation and demolition began in mid-December 2021. As any public housing project goes through in terms of getting funding, coordinating with the county, et cetera, they tend to move slowly. This one has moved slower than most. Now, I always like to keep an eye on it because Core Companies was very involved with discussing with SHPNA what the project should be, came to annual meetings, gave us multiple presentations, so we continue to look forward to that site being put to good use. And those walking down the Alameda may have seen the proposed work to the old Water Garden bathhouse appears to be complete at 1010 the Alameda, conversion to some indoor-outdoor office space. And as sparse to a certain extent as that map was, you'll see this map is quite the opposite. This is the proposed developments. Now, many projects that were in the planning stages just before the pandemic didn't move very far beyond that point. Some even stalled completely. Several more have begun the entitlement process since then. Again, each SHPNA logo indicates a single proposed project. 32 and 60 Stockton Avenue for most, that's the car wash at the corner of Stockton and the Alameda and the adjacent site next to it, which now, as of 2017, is officially downtown, which is what dictates the additional height. And one thing I like to emphasize on this one planning item that they've used, they're hoping for a feel of a San Pedro Square style food court open to the public at the ground floor. They see the proximity, obviously, to Dirda and to SAP Center as an opportunity to create a public serving space, which, to be honest, is usually the top of the list of things that we talk to developers when they come to us. 244 McAvoy, across from 777 Park, right at the railroad overpass. We've had presentations from Dan Unseer about this. 250 Stockton Avenue, next to the new apartment building across the street from Whole Foods. This block will be interesting to watch as it develops. There's currently the Hudson property, that 7-story apartment building directly across from Whole Foods. If this block gets developed as intended, on the corner, you'll have that high rise that I just showed you, which actually will be laminated timber construction, which honestly will be fascinating to watch. Next to that, you have the Hudson property, which you see very little bit of in this rendering. Next to that, this commercial office building, and then planned, but now seems to have gone fellow at the corner of Julian and Stockton, was proposed a hotel. So if all four came to fruition, you'd have in one block a tall apartment building, a shorter apartment building, an office building, and a hotel all across from Whole Foods. So an opportunity for kind of work, home, and guests all to be on a one block area with Whole Foods directly across the street. I mean, proposes some interesting potential synergies if that was able to work. And the immediate proximity to transit makes that so ideally as much as possible could be done without substantive impact on traffic. So that's something that we're watching very carefully as well. 266 to 270 Sonol Street, the northwest corner of Sonol and West San Carlos. Believe this is the project that the developer has referred to as 777 West San Carlos. 280 McAvoy, another affordable housing project that has been slow in developing, but any affordable housing project of this size is a slow process. They met with the SHPNA Board, I believe, 3 times over the course of the design. Now, mind you, the last meeting, all of them were pre-pandemic, so it shows to a certain extent how long this process can take. And beneath each of these slides, which obviously we post on our website, et cetera, this alphanumeric, in this instance, the FP 18-059. That is, if you go to the city's website, sjpermits.org, and enter that code in, it'll give you the current status of these projects. It is a very useful tool and one that obviously I cite because you can see when things are updated, where they stand, if they've been withdrawn, et cetera. 860 West San Carlos Street. This is an interesting one. It's at the corner of West San Carlos and Sonol. It's actually a scaled back iteration of a previous much larger project. And this is an instance where, like some others, that a lot of these projects have slowed either completely to a halt or very close to it as economic realities have changed. But because the planning documents at one, or building permit documents at in one form or another, are still filed with the city, we're still watching them until they either move forward or are formally withdrawn. 945 West Julian and 379 North Morrison. Unlike a lot of the others, this is one of the very early stages. It's the corner right at the northwest corner of that intersection. And what it is, there's no specific building proposed. The request was to rezone it to transit residential and to amend the Alameda Urban Village to essentially turn this into a parcel that would support a future 7-story apartment building. Previously, they just owned the corner, which obviously made development a little more challenging. In buying the adjacent lot, development opportunities are a bit more flexible. 950 West Julian, the southwest corner of West Julian and North Morrison. 1470 West San Carlos, a project that has been on again, off again for as someone like Alex could probably attest, have been on again, off again for quite some time. Whenever it appears like it's stalled, there'll be incremental forward progress. And some of these projects on West San Carlos, while just outside the neighborhood association boundaries, I include either way because traffic, quality of life, and opportunities. I mean, we don't all just live within the boundaries and shop within the boundaries and relax within the boundaries. We go outside it. So we should be engaged on the entirety of the local area so that quality of life and amenities for these projects can be as good as they possibly can be. See, 1520 West San Carlos between Willard and Buena Vista. And then right next door, actually by the same development team, and not the exact team, but the same architect, 1530 to 1544, the typo there, West San Carlos, also between Willard and Buena Vista. 1881 West San Carlos between Boston and Brooklyn Avenues. This is, for reference, this is actually the old Antiques Colony building and some adjacent structures. And if I remember correctly, it was technically part of the unincorporated county that now, as part of development, when unincorporated parts of the county get redeveloped, they essentially get annexed into the city. 1921 West San Carlos between Brooklyn and Cleveland. And some of these renderings are old because they haven't moved that much past the planning stages. Let's turn to transit briefly. Each of the transit agencies continue to move forward with their own projects. As to a certain extent, Doug gave us the presentation on. The Diridon Integrated Station Concept, or DISC, is intended to be a joint effort to combine the stations for all of the transit agencies into one coherent whole. Over the next 2 decades, let's not lie, the area will look substantially different. Caltrain electrification was originally scheduled for completion in late 2021 or early 2022. The current estimate has the electric trains going into service in September 2024. High-speed rail has finally obtained its environmental clearances for the San Jose to San Francisco and Merced to San Jose segments. The revised estimated cost for the San Francisco to San Jose project section stands at $5.3 billion, which is an increase of over 200%. The 2 segments overlap on the platforms at Diridon Station, yet neither analysis mentions the DISC. Each is moving forward based on the construction of a small freestanding station next to the historic depot. Now, projects of this size, that's what they do. They can't assume that another theoretical project will be a reality, so they each design and approve in a vacuum, if you will. The disc concept calls for the tracks to be raised plus or minus 25 feet above existing grade. Platforms would extend over and beyond the historic station, requiring either its relocation or demolition. This would eliminate the need for dips or underpasses at Julian, Santa Clara, San Fernando, Park, West San Carlos, and Ozare. The most optimistic timeline, though, to be honest, has the station between 15 and 20 years out. As Doug mentioned, because BART will be getting the Diridon first, it will have a separate freestanding station across the street from SAP Center. And we saw some of the renderings, et cetera, about that. So the key is for the remaining agencies, hopefully to continue to work together so that whatever station does become this self-titled Grand Central Station of the West, that it incorporates as many of these transit agencies as possible, and that moving from one form or another is as easy as possible. Very briefly, we could spend 2 hours just discussing this, but obviously we're not going to. Google's Downtown West mixed-use plan includes a $154 million donation as part of its approval, which will be distributed by the new Community Stabilization and Opportunity Pathways Fund Commission, which was established in December. The plan assumes the historic depot remains intact while the DISC has it relocated or demolished. Demolition of buildings along South Montgomery Street between Park and the Alameda will begin this spring. You've probably seen the chain link fences starting to go up. And the first of the contractors that will be working on the substantive underground utilities that Google is planning have started their work as well. One of the things that we're watching carefully is Google said all the right things, did all the right things, and made a lot of excellent promises. The key is, as this work gets passed on to outside contractors, it is now being done by people who did not make these promises. So the key is to watch these local and outside contractors to make sure that they are following both the letter and ideally the spirit of the approvals and the conversations that took place over the course of years for the planning and approval of Downtown West. And hang with me, I'm almost there. The Diridon Station area plan includes parts of SHPNA and forms the entirety of its eastern edge. In 2017, the city extended the boundary of downtown to Stockton Avenue, as I said previously, and the train tracks. As a result, the maximum building heights in the area have increased from roughly 100 feet to 290 feet throughout the entire area. This is how the proposal at 32 and 60 Stockton is the height that it was. It would have been not much taller than the apartment building next to it prior to 2017. And with a nod of thanks to Diana, I don't need to discuss the Arena Hotel and Project Homekey in any substantive detail. I'll just reemphasize that SHPNA and the ABA are both represented on the council members' community advisory council for the project. And the key things to emphasize that how the use will differ from what has happened over the last few years is that the additional security and, to me, most importantly, the social services that will be provided to residents who have been chosen to live in the repurposed Arena Hotel during that time. Social services is not something that's been provided over the previous years, and it's a more efficient use of the land, and it better serves those that need the transitional housing. Very briefly, I'll cover the three pieces of new state legislation that have planning and land use implications. AB 2011 allows for by right approval of mixed income housing on certain lands currently zoned for commercial uses. AB 2097 is a state bill that many may not have heard of, but there is a city component I'll mention. AB 2097 removes minimum parking requirements for residential or commercial developments within half a mile of a major transit stop. San Jose went a step further in December, removing minimum parking requirements for all new residential or commercial developments citywide. This is seen as a vital step towards meeting the city's Climate Smart 2030 environmental goals by incentivizing biking, public transit, scooters, and car share services over the use of private vehicles. And lastly, SB 886 further streamlines ADU approvals, primarily to address municipalities that have honestly been less receptive to them than has San Jose. We've got a couple questions here. As Alex mentioned, one of the questions of the Q&A, unfortunately, some of the projects it's presenting have been delayed or are up in the air as to whether they'll actually get built. 100% true. And Alex will be one of the first people through his good work with Catalyzed SV that is aware of kind of how tenuous some of these approvals have gotten. Tina mentioned any update on the CVS space. No, that the key was CVS. It wasn't a bunch of CVS stores closed, underperforming stores closed. There had obviously been problems with that store for a while. Unofficial hints and allegations, to use an old Paul Simon lyric that I've gotten, is that in this instance, the landlord also sees its proximity to downtown and the Alameda Urban Village as that property is worth substantively more redeveloped than CVS was ever going to pay them. So when the lease came up, the property owner made clear that he wanted that property able to be redeveloped as soon as possible. Obviously, economic realities now may slow that, but the intent is that the property owner is essentially waiting to resell the property. And Lauren had put, with the volume of build project, also where may I access this proposed development stack? We will be posting, the video of the annual meeting will be posted on social media and YouTube. We'll also send out a link on Google Drive to the PDF of the various PowerPoints as well. Lauren mentions, with the volume of built projects, has the analysis of infrastructure capabilities kept pace? If yes, what entity is performing the analysis? Well, Lauren kind of gets to the heart of a lot of the questions. That a lot of these, the things with things like the urban villages and development along there is by that then some of their development fees, et cetera, would go towards updating the infrastructure. There is intent there. In theory, there is money there. The big infrastructure that when someone hears a question like Lauren's, I think the three letters that we all think of is PG&E. And does the grid have the capability for this? And honestly, the answer from planning, building, and code enforcement is we hope so. We know right now they don't, but we hope so. That any of the city's electrification goals are dependent upon PG&E very much stepping up their game. So it's something that all of us, the concern is a valid one, and all of us are definitely keeping an eye on. Correct, and Alex is correct. And one of the other things he posted in the Q&A, the city's elimination of parking minimums does not say there will be no parking. It says that the minimum written a substantial number of years ago, that developers will look at the cost benefit analysis and they will determine how many parking spots a given proposal will have. And they, in no way, shape, or form does it say they cannot have any parking. In no way, shape, or form does it say they have to. It will let the market bear it out to a great extent. And no, it's never too much out. I did include verbiage about exactly that. So thank you for pinging that. If there are any other questions, I don't see any, and obviously everybody's probably tired of hearing me blather on. So with that, I will take a couple of deep breaths and we will move on. I've got a few very brief videos from the City of San Jose's Parks, Rec, and Neighborhood Services Placemaking program. And we've also got Alvaro from the program to answer some questions or provide some additional comments. Each of the videos is only about a minute long, so we'll go ahead and run those and then see if you have any questions for Alvaro.
Thank you, Ed.
Now, watch knowing my luck, the YouTube video won't work. moving on. And there was a couple SHPNA residents there. I saw I saw Colin from Community Cycles in that video as well. So another local resident you might recognize.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, that's the extent of that. Alvaro, do you have any additional comments?
No, I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity to showcase our programming. Just want to let you guys know that Viva Calle is coming down the pipeline. There is talks about coming down Nagley, down to the Rose Garden. So that's one of the reasons I want to reach out to you guys and just open a line of communication. Our Viva Parks neighborhood programming will start in June, all through August, and there'll be about 50 activations. And last but not least, we do have a brand new program called Paint the City, where we offer the community a chance to come enjoy a lovely evening in the park and just paint, get creative. All of our programming is free, and I'd like to open it up to you guys. If you have any questions, comments, anything I can share with you all, please.
Right. Do we have any comments or questions for Alvaro? Obviously, we saw a few instances of things very familiar to us with the placemaking team at the events that's gone on with the Neighborhood Association. We've been very fortunate to have them be a part of it. And as you mentioned, there'll be hopefully some additional events in the future. Seeing no additional comments, I will say thank you to Alvaro, and we'll go ahead and keep moving.
Thank you, Ed.
There we go. All right. I mentioned very briefly at the start, to me quite correctly, identified Pastor Bryan and Westminster Presbyterian Church as, to me, the definition of A, kind of the heart of the neighborhood, and B, if you want to talk about a community serving church, I'm not sure you could find one that would be more readily fitting that bill than Westminster Presbyterian. So let me see, Brian, if I can pull up your slide deck here quickly.
There we are. If not, I can pull it up.
Thinking about it. There we go. All right.
So as he's pulling it up, Westminster, as you know, has been in the neighborhood. We're coming up, actually, in a couple of years. We'll have been on the Alameda for around 100 years. In 2026, we'll be celebrating 100 years on the Alameda. We've been in San Jose longer than that. Westminster changed their name from Second Presbyterian Church to Westminster when they moved to the community. That was then in the far western suburbs of San Jose, believe it or not. And the big project, and we've had quite a fall. We've had a lot of break-ins, fires, a whole bunch of other stuff this fall. And we feel a lot of the things that the community is feeling with the homeless situation and that sort of stuff. And so we know that. And one of the things that we're doing, and you've seen the construction happening, is what is being termed as the Urban Ministry Center. And this is the education building and chapel that were off of Hanchett Street. And this Urban Ministry Center is going to be rented completely to the Bill Wilson Center. And I'll just give you a quick overview. Did you get the slides working? Or do you want me to share directly? No, I can't share. There we go. So the go to the next slide. As we know the need, we can go to the next slide. I think our politicians kind of went over that. We can go to the next slide. I want to get to the pictures, actually. Next slide. We'll go into next slide. So what they're looking at bringing into this, unlike, this is not going to be a residential area or overnight services. This is going to be a center where they're going to be able to do different things. So it'll be a place where they can do a one-stop shop for families and getting things. So it'll have a small laundry facility as well as showers. They're going to bring over the Center for Living with Dying. And for those of you who read about the VTA shooting, it was the Center for Living with Dying that did a lot of the counseling after that VTA shooting. That's the group. It's not very well known, but they do a lot of outreach in that way and services for that. They're looking at bringing over counseling services as well as life skills training, as well as their LGBTQ drop-in center, which is currently with their regular homeless drop-in center, which, because of the nature of the communities, isn't working out too wonderfully. So they're hoping to bring that over to our space, which is a much safer location for that. What the big thing that many of you who've seen the buildings may not have seen is that they were literally falling down. We didn't really know how bad they were until they started to do some of the demolition work. But those who have, from the Hanchett side, where the front entrance was, most of that was being held up by sticks and twigs because termites had eaten away a lot of that front facade area inside the wood. And so as they opened it up, they had to keep cutting back till they got to the good wood. Basically some of those walls were just the paint on the outside. The same thing was true of the side of the Ed building that was facing the street, was completely eaten out by termites and water damage and other things. And the reason we got into redoing the building and trying to find a longer term rental was that we basically had a choice. We either had to shutter the building because it was going to be unsafe, just because it didn't meet any code for anything and we couldn't rent it out. And so, like I said, we were going to have to shutter it or find a good use. And we were approached by the Presbyterian of San Jose to carry on the work that the First Presbyterian Church downtown, when it closed, was doing. And so that's where this came from. And the finances, most of the finances for this building have come from the Presbytery. the project itself is $3 million over what it was initially intended to be. And so that's created some issues, and we haven't been able to do much more than what we thought. Pretty much the only things that the neighbors are going to really see from the outside as a change is that the windows in the chapel will be clear. They won't be stained glass anymore. We're getting those replaced out, and that there'll be a lift that'll be on the outside. Otherwise, pretty much the outside of the facility is going to go the same. We can go to the next picture to give you an idea. The chapel, our vision for the chapel is that it's going to be a multi-purpose space. On the left, you see it completely cleared out before they right at the end of demolition, and on the right is what it was a few days ago, and you can see the white lumber at the top. Those will be where the lighting is going to be put in, and on the floor we're hoping to have a labyrinth. But that space, what we're looking to use is that space is really a multi-purpose space. Because it's handicap accessible, it'll be able to be moved and used for multiple things. So the neighborhood could use it for meetings, for gatherings, or other things without it feeling too overwhelmingly churchy. It's really kind of an exciting space now that we got the pews out of there. And we're also looking to kind of have a little more control over the space than we had before with just the Latin church that was in there, and kind of moving forward of looking at how that is. If we go to the next slide, which will get into the construction of the downstairs bathrooms, are kind of the big things. They'll be inside. You can see in the lower left-hand corner is the inside bathrooms. And there'll be two that have shower units, two that are just regular units. And you can kind of see the rough-ins up there and the nice big shower units that are done. Again, the group that we're working, or the group that Bill Wilson is looking at working with, are families with this. This is not this is not necessarily the group that we're seeing on the Alameda. These are folks that are underhoused or like living in their cars or that sort of thing, that are living in family units. And so we designed the bathrooms and especially the shower units so that they were big enough that a mother could be standing in there with 2 or 3 of their kids doing what needs to be done with that. And so they're going to be really, really nice. I wish I had a shower as big as the ones that we're putting in here, but it's going to be a nice setup. And as you can see, this hallway, and if we go to the next slide, it's going to be monitored. So when people are on site, it's going to be able to be watched by staff and make sure that everything is being done. So on the upper left, you see the rough in, and just below that, you see it with the drywall from yesterday. But behind that opening wall is where you have the entrance to the bathrooms, so that it can be monitored but also watched. And through the room, if you look in through the other side, you can see where the rough-ins for the laundry facility is going to be. And that back room there is going to be the area that will be a place for people to fold their clothes and kind of a work area with other resources that are in it. We can go to the next slide. This is the upstairs area, and one of the things that the building had was upstairs, it had 4 great rooms, 4 giant rooms that were there. Those no longer exist. There's only one really great room that's left in that building, and that's the second floor room at the far end. All of the other rooms have been broken down into individual areas, which will be used for either counseling services or offices, and which is more functional for the Bill Wilson Center. In the middle, at the top, you can see the rough-in for the staff lounge area, and on the left, the big picture on the left is going to be their kitchen for the staff area. And when I say kitchen, I'm talking about not a kitchen that you could actually make a meal from scratch at, but a kitchen that the staff is able to warm up, like you would have in a typical office, to warm up. One of the big projects upstairs was redoing the decking and bringing it up so that it was level to the doors. And so all of the decking had to be ripped out. The deck had to be lifted up, and eventually we'll get more secure railings and that sort of stuff upstairs. If we go to the next slide. Okay, the big thing, and this picture kind of hits at the big cost to this project, and really, like I said, from the outside, people aren't going to see a lot of difference, and really, in a lot of ways, there isn't a lot of difference except for the technology that's going in. Both by accident and luck and everything else, we couldn't afford the type of system that would be one heating system for the whole building. That would have required a whole lot more extensive work on shoring up the building and everything else. And so what they did instead is that every room will have an individual unit circulating air from inside and outside. And so there will be a closet in each room that'll have one of the units that are still in their boxes in the middle. And they'll each have individual controls. This actually works out great because in counseling, there's not going to be a transference through heating systems from one room to the other, so that they'll have some confidentiality within their systems. And for COVID reasons, you're not going to be blowing one group stuff into the other group. And so it's not perfect, but it's really kind of a cool thing that it worked out. You can see the lighting. All of the lighting will be put into LED lighting and all automatic on and off when people come in and out of rooms. So the other good thing with that, especially for many of you who've worried about the parking lot at the church, we will be replacing all of the outside lighting with LED lights that'll be programmed to go on at dusk and go off in the morning. And so that'll be a really nice change and also brighten up the parking lot, but also make sure that the light is focused into the parking lot. And so that'll come closer to the end of the thing, as well as you can see our nice wires that are coming down. Everything is going to be modernized so that there is accessibility through data ports and everything in all of the rooms, as well as control over the heating and lighting system mechanically. The outside of the building, which you can see, the only two changes that you're really going to see on the building, the one is already up, and that's the gate around the heating units at the top, which is that burgundy thing. And then over to the other side, you can see what that looks like underneath that with the pipes coming out from the rooms. Another thing that we decided also for a safety reason was taking out, there used to be a connection between the chapel and the building. And we took that out for a few reasons. And a big reason really was safety. By having that not blocked in, it makes it less desirable for people to stay back there. And that was an area that prior to the building, we often had homeless people camping out back there because they weren't seen. And so going forward, the things that have not been funded and we're still working on is some of the finishing stuff because everything has gone over budget, so our budgets got taxed. So right now, the big things that haven't been addressed have been the landscaping around the outside. We do have some volunteers that are going to help with that when that's done, but that's to do anything above just kind of a basic landscaping, we still have to raise funds for, as well as some of the furniture and other aspects to that. One of my hopes is that when we get to landscaping, that would be about the time that maybe the park is started up and we can have some conversations about how maybe we can make it, at least match whatever's being done at the park or complement what's being done at the park so that it ties in better with what's going on over on Hanchett Street. And lastly, if you want to go last slide, we do have a free drinking fountain that was found in a corner somewhere that if you want it, you're more welcome to have it. So I see that there is a question. Oh, that's not for me. Okay. Yeah. So is there any questions? Okay. I guess that's pretty much. We really love working with the neighborhood and are hopeful for continued relations. We'll probably have a open house in April or May when the project is somewhat done. We have two things that are going to slow down the project. One is the getting final from the PG&E is they're slow, and also the water department getting final approval for the water plan for the fire extinguishers and getting all of that stuff hooked up. So but we're looking to get hopefully a temporary occupancy in the beginning of May. So. And that's all I got.
Looks like we may have lost Ed for a little while, for a little bit. So as he's probably reconnecting and doing all that. So Brian, all this that you reviewed, was that all the educational building? It wasn't anything at all with the main church or
no,
right?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have any money to do the main building. Hopefully, I mean, the part of the agreement for the funds to do this was that we would be taking a good percentage of the funds and putting that into a building fund that would be able to go back to do some of the bigger projects later on. So kind of an endowment to maintain the facilities. The desire of the presbytery is really so that the property doesn't get run down to the point that it becomes an even bigger financial burden to the church in the future. So, and of course, nobody wants to have a rundown property in their neighborhood. And And so hopefully this will make sure that that doesn't happen.
Okay.
I apologize about that. Our house lost power there and took everything with it.
That's
Wow.
right. Yeah, we figured we lost you there for a little bit, but we just had a few questions for Brian regarding the buildings and stuff. That's all.
I appreciate everybody soldiering on. With that, actually, the only other thing that I had was a high-speed rail video, and what I can do, I will share a link on social media, etc. Unless everybody wants me to go ahead. It's about a 7-minute video. That was the last remaining thing other than my closing remarks. So I can go ahead.
Would it be better to just share it on our website if it's 7 minutes?
I mean, I can. The key reason I was going to share the video is it's about half of it is specific to Deer Down Station, but I'll go ahead and I'll just share that on our social media, etc., rather than move forward with that. So I will skip a couple of slides then. It's they sent us the 3-minute slick advertisement of everything they've done in the last year, and then a 7-minute more detailed kind of Gilroy to San Jose. With that, we'll go ahead and a couple interesting glitches there here this afternoon. But thank you everybody, obviously, especially those that stuck with us. A lot of information posted today. We will clearly, obviously, go ahead and share the recording on social media, etc., send out the links. If you had any additional comments or questions, please feel free to contact the board. Or if you want contact information for any of the speakers today, please feel free to reach out. We're very fortunate to have as engaged of a membership as we do. We look forward to hopefully reviving some additional events in the coming year. And as always, with much thanks to my other board members, the 5 of us have managed to do a great deal, and we look forward to hopefully reaching out to additional members of the community and expanding our board base in the coming year. With that, I will go ahead and everybody's favorite thing of the day, although there is a, let me make sure. Oh, it was just Noel. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Noel, for your patience with our technical glitches today. I'll go ahead and wrap up and thank everybody. And you've still got about 53 minutes if you want to head over to Lincoln High School Farmers Market before it closes. That is exactly where I'm going from here. I've got my mind.
Uh-oh.
Maybe his power's out again.
And we lost him, yeah.
Well, do we want to wrap her up?
I think Ed was in his final closing statements, and at this point, most of the video from the meeting will also be up on the website within the next few days.
And I'm imagining we'll be sending out a link on the email list, the shipment email list.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody stay tuned for that. And like Ed, I was thinking about going over to the farmers market. So if that's it, maybe we can go ahead and close out the meeting. Are there any final questions or anything that hadn't been asked? I don't see anything. Yeah, thanks everybody for showing up. I'm going to leave now.